Over 2.5 years into your administration, what would you say have been the major challenges of governance in Cross River State?
First, money is not a challenge because it's always been there. In physics, that's key, it's constant, so we take it for granted. It's attitude. Attitude, mentality, philosophy. I think the greatest challenge we have in governance in Nigeria, not just about Cross River State, in Nigeria, is that we have created a generation of young people who come out of school without proper training that we had, no fault of theirs, the system failure. And so they come out with the laissez-faire attitude to get only a simplistic job that neither tax the brain nor tax the skill. And so people are just content with a traditional salary job that puts food on the table without necessarily allowing those young people to exploit their greatest potential. So attitude becomes a very big problem. Infrastructure, every other thing is underpinned by attitude. Because we got everything as Africans. We have everything. But what we lack is the attitude, the industry, the feeling that at 7 I have to be at work. At the specific time, I need to carry out a particular function. That is lacking. The attitude is the greatest problem of the black continent.
So how have you been able to tackle that attitudinal problem here in Cross River State?
Well, what I've done is try to use myself as a celebration of that expression. I came in to run a state that is challenged in the material terms, in terms of financing, which is a traditional problem, so I take it for granted. But I took my soul above that challenge. I asked my body to follow me and decided that with the attitude, that positive impression that I must achieve, I must conquer, I must get it done, that I am committed, that I carry myself as if I run the richest state, in fact, as if I'm running a subnational. I'm making an effort to change the value system. That when you seek value, success, wealth comes. When you seek money, your name, your character, your integrity, it goes down with you. So that orientation comes not just sufficient by talking, but they see you do it. And so it's continuous inculcation, continuous training, continuous engagement, continuous interaction, particularly with the young workforce and my appointees. And so such clinics have helped in actually creating a new challenge because I set targets for them and allow you to achieve your targets. I can tell you that when I expanded government, creating over 2,843 jobs, the original plan was just to put food on the table. So you find young people, I just say special advisor, tank farm management. Special assistant, I just give you a title. But the ultimate ambition was to put food on the table. And some young men take that ordinary title and make so much value. I call somebody special assistant of cocoa. And the guy comes back and has acquired 3,000 hectares of land for cocoa. He's gone to Ghana, get some new hybrid seeds, set it aside. And today, by his words and encouragement, today we're building the biggest cocoa processing plant. We find young people that we gave jobs that were ordinarily supposed to be food on the table. They are restless and say, look, I don't feel good that I'm earning the salary and I'm not working. And every day I see my governor take off first thing in the morning, closes very late, and then they watch me and listen to me in the various meetings. And some of them get very energized and try to do something. But that's a very insignificant number relative to the situation. So my success value, I'll still put very low. Not for not trying, but that because it's such a big and an endemic problem, it takes time to cure. To ascribe success to myself, I would have been lying to my conscience.
What is this that drives you in politics?
Permit me, when I define myself, that I'm not a politician. I say so from the Nigerian perspective. I'm a system purifier, a philosopher, if you like. I think I'm very content. I come from a very poor background. And when I say poor, my father was a civil servant. So he's just a salary man. But I also saw early wealth. So by 23, I could put my assets in the neighborhood of over $1 billion. So I've seen early wealth. I've reached the zenith of my dream to be a professor as a childhood wish, to be a governor. I even got what I didn't even ask for, to be a senator. So I have reached a point where I think God has been just too fair. I've also risen above this physical materialism, and I've seen the nothingness in this world. From dust to dust, west to west. Nothing. We don't leave everything behind. If human beings, we are just strange people. When you see your classmates, when you hear about your roommate in university gone, I mean, does it not tell you the nothingness in this world? My values are completely different. You know what excites me now? Talk to me about superhighway, deep seaport, or crossover. Don't forget any other thing doesn't interest me. Tell me about the development of crossover states. I'm a very, very passionate person. Now, what's the difference? If you're seeking knowledge, knowledge can be acquired. You can train people. But you can never train passion. And I seek, when I see people, I look for passion in them. So what makes me unique is that I have passion and I've risen above material consideration. I'm more philosophical looking at the hereafter than the now.
The Bakassi Deep Seaport, the superhighway, the rice mill, and the garment factory. These are some of the signature projects that you have been known for. First, let's begin with the deep seaport. Ordinarily, one would think that should be a federal government project. But here you are, you have saddled yourself and the state with that responsibility. What's the philosophy behind it?
Now, as a country, Nigeria has about 921,000 square kilometers of land with almost 1,000 kilometers of Atlantic coastline. And this nation has only one maritime gateway, practically speaking, Lagos. Whether you call it Tinkan, Apapa, Badagry, Lekki, all these ports are concentrated in Lagos State. Now, for security, strategy, and defense purpose, very unsafe and unwise for the country. For egalitarian redistribution in terms of logistics, that also makes it cumbersome. For efficiency in business and value for money in commerce, it makes it inoperable. If you look at the zero oil roadmap for Nigeria as prescribed by Buhari's regime, it is expected that we will have a north-south route coming out of the port of Lagos, going into the northwestern Nigeria, from Port Harcourt through the north central, and from Calabar through the northeast. Now, when you look at these two other apertures, they are not in operation. But the truth is that the proposed Bakassi Deep Seaport is the only way forward for this country. If you look at goods coming out of America, most of the ships, they don't just load to come to Africa. They load with European-bound cargo. So they will transship through Europe. So they will approach Nigeria from the eastern flank. So most ships, even coming from America, which ordinarily should have been closer to Lagos, will not go through the South Pacific. They would rather go through the North Atlantic Ocean and find themselves coming into Nigeria. So whether the cargo is coming from Middle East, Dubai and the rest, or Far East, China and the rest, or coming from America or Canada, they still have to come through Bakassi before they get to Lagos, most of times. And so when you reduce the logistics challenge, so just imagine a Onitsha man, a trader, an able man trading, or in such, like ourselves here in Crossriver State. You have to first ship to Lagos, arrive in Lagos, and the vessel pass through your Calabar River here, pass here and get to Lagos, offload from there, and just start bringing it back by road. And sometimes a 20-feet container, for example, or 40-feet container coming in from Europe is cheaper for me to pay for the shipment, which sometimes is just $2,800, and pay 1.6 million naira for a trailer load to bring me a 40-feet container coming out from when you take it with insurance. It's more expensive to take a container from Lagos to Calabar than to get that container from Europe to Lagos. So you have a burden, and you are not debottlenecking Lagos. You have a population rising to 16 to 20 million people on 3,000 square kilometers. So you have congestion, gradually reducing a beautiful, wonderful city like Lagos to near slum because of the demographics and human pressure. And so this port, ordinarily in your question, you're correct, it ought to be a federal project. Because obviously, it's the right thing to do. To beautify Lagos is still one of our greatest heritage as a nation, as the second capital of Nigeria, but you need to make it habitable. Unfortunately, its land is unexpandable, except the unnatural means like reclaiming Atlantic that they are doing now, but again, at what cost? So I think practically speaking, the deep sea port we propose to build in Bakassi, which is 20 meters in terms of draft, 3 kilometers in terms of the quay wall, is the biggest and the deepest port in Africa. It's passed through conceptual design. We're in detailed design stage with China Harbour, which is the biggest construction company in terms of harbour works and in terms of port construction in the world. In terms of port infrastructure manufacturing, they are still the biggest in the world. So we went to Class A port company, and their dredgers have arrived in Nigeria. They've started work, full mobilization for preliminary and pre-construction work for the reclamation of the Bakassi port location.
Apart from words of encouragement from Mr. President on the deep sea project, how much more of support have you gotten from the federal government?
Oh, so much. Practically speaking, his physical presence to do the groundbreaking ceremony, the major contribution. 2, when approvals became institutionally difficult, Mr. President stepped in. 3, when I went back to Mr. President, I was the last to see him before his first medical vacation. And actually he had to invite me over to his house. And he told me, and I say it on record again, that go, follow due process, tender and award that contract to a competent contractor. Come back to me. I will support you. We will find funding to support the project. And we have just awarded to China Harbour. So I'm going to go back to you. And Mr. President keeps his words. So he's been a strong motivator. And in terms of Naira and Kobo, I know it will come from him. He will support. I know how close we are. I know he will. And I know he understands this project from security, from commerce, from diversification, even the issues of the northern Nigeria, because they are landlocked. This project is like I'm taking Atlantic Ocean to northern Nigeria, because it's not just building a deep sea port. What is special? Akwa Ibom is doing one. Ogun State is doing one. River State has got one. Sapele is existing. Warri Port is there. Lagos is there. Badagry is just starting. Lekki is building. Tolerant Group is investing. But what is special and what is unique and peculiar to our port is that it's a deep sea port with an evacuation corridor to northern Nigeria, which is the biggest challenge derived from my experience with the Djibouti port. Once you have a port without an evacuation corridor, just read it that you have disaster cooking. So every other port is landlocked, is hidden inside the city center. So it doesn't work. And cities grow to meet ports. So we took ours to Bakassi Deep Sea Port, and immediately I created this Ministry of New City, whose business is to start opening cities in such a way that we never have the mistakes of what other states, other cities have experienced as a result of expansion. The fastest way to grow a state is a port. We're blessed that we're a coastline state. And no level of political distraction distraction to this project that will work, unless God doesn't leave.
You just talked about funding. Where are you going to get that from?
And the funding is actually not the problem. It's the list of the problems, because everything I have said to do, I've even beaten my own records and set program. How am I going to get the funding? One, we have an allocation from the federal government that is beneath our salaries. And we are the first to pay salaries at all times, and we are not owing. We have to devise intellectual means. And that's where the pocket fails, where money fails, the intellect fills in. And so that question, the direct answer you want to get, and I'll tell you, that gap occasioned by whatever the president chips in and the greater chunk of fund which is expected to come from me, how am I going to get it from? I'll give you the answer straight from the intellect.
How so?
From the intellectual financing. Because what we have not done as a country, we have never added the value, intellectual values to work. We always look at the monetary value. I'll give you an example. I decided to spend more money on trying to get an appropriate location. Normally in a deep sea port is how it's always at the mouth of a deep sea. And therefore, because of the wave action, you have to install the breakwaters, which normally contributes to about 60% of cost of port construction. I decided to locate a deep sea port at the mouth of the Great War River, which gives me a locational cost of a river port, but the functionality of a deep sea port, because it's just a few kilometers away from the fairway buoy, which is the beginning of the Atlantic Ocean, the proper deep sea. So by just design, I have saved a huge cost. Two, I brought 3 different companies in a bid process and sat back and renegotiate and struck a deal with my design team. A deal that saw the price crashing from otherwise 5 to 10% of design costs, of construction costs, to a negotiated figure. That cost savings is an intellectual savings that you don't put in Naira terms. We're also working with a consortium that is supposed to be a giant dredging company, CNQC of China, partnering with China Harbour, to take the most expensive component into a small company that is going to hold it as an equity. So you have an equity fund embedded in a contractual financing structure, a complex method of doing business with that money. Very, very intellectual architecture. Again, it's an advanced level of economics. I hold a master's degree in business administration. I'm a lawyer as well, apart from the fact that I'm a professor of science. So it's a very balanced intellectual level of governance that we bring in. And so for 2 professors, governor and deputy professors, definitely you should expect that we must bring this level of academics into governance.
Let's talk about the super highways. What is the state of the highway today?
The EIA for the superhighway was registered before I was sworn in as governor. Because the EIA law is very clear that before you initiate a project that has a major consequence on the environment, you have to carry out an environmental impact assessment. When you carry out this impact assessment, once the baseline data has been gathered, which must be for wet season and dry season, once you've gathered the data, you can move to field and apply for a provisional license. I was sworn in May 29th. Before that May 29th, I had started work on the EIA. What was the reason? The reason was that I wanted to make sure that I capture the peak of the rainy season, because rainy season starts April. Here it stretches even up to October. So I made sure that I captured the rainy season of the months that I was sowing. So I started the EIA somewhere in April. So by the time I was done with the dry season sampling, which was November, December, I moved to the field. So 6 months, 8 months from when I was sworn in as governor, I had finished the design, the preliminary design of the superhighway, and I finished clearing the route from beginning of Bakassi to the end. And I give you another example. The detailed design of a 275 kilometers, 6-lane superhighway, the standard would have been to ask for 5% of project cost. A project which is over 800 billion. And when we went to a high-level construction company, the bill they gave us was negotiated down to about 65 billion. And I left them alone, and I went to a company out of UK and took a Google detailed design on a short distance connecting the deep sea port with the exit point from Cross River to northern Nigeria, which is at Gakem, towards Benue State, Katsina Road. And once we took those coordinates, I came and split that job to say, open the route for me at 4 million per kilometer on a bandwidth of just 70 meters. So 70 meters corridor, 4 million per kilometer, gave it to about 42 contractors. I finished in 3 months. Project cost me under 1 billion. I think that I should have spent about 150 billion if I followed traditional design of superhighways. When I finished opening the route, then I brought China Roads, which is a world-class design company in China. They designed and built the longest ocean bridge in the world to do me the design. So when they want to tell me, because when they want to do design, they take soil samples every 30 meters. I say, sorry, the route is open. You don't need to take the soil sample. My deputy governor is a professor of soil science. We'll work with you and give you our data. I own the most sophisticated environmental testing laboratory in Nigeria. So we give you the data. So I bring my team of geology from my ministry, put together a team, and provided them the data. So all you just need to do is the design. And we crashed the price. Today we've completed the detailed design, world-class design. I saved close to 200 billion. But it's done with the best of company. There's an intellectual element people don't see. Now, to do the debushing, we've opened the route. So the earthworks will start. Then political issues. People start going to court and slow down this work. So you're asking me, where is it now? The design is completed, the route survey completed, and the earthwork, opening it up from beginning to the end, completed. All those people who fall within that flag is to be compensated, have been gazetted, booked down. The EIA approval has now been formally granted, and we're returning to the field to start work. Amidst over 80 international petitions against the superhighway, which were predominantly political. So that's where we are.
Okay, I was coming to the issue of the petitions because there have been a number of environmental groups who have said you are going to destroy wildlife and the forest resources in the course of building this highway. How much effort has government made to reach out to these people and to the locals, the inhabitants of these areas where the road passes through?
It is extreme falsehood that the construction of the superhighway will devalue the environment. Unfortunately, it is my field. Unfortunately, also, it is the field of the deputy governor. It is our specialty. He's a soil scientist. I'm an environmental scientist. So that combination is too hot for you to tell cheap lies. But we dismiss it because we know it's political. Let me shock you. Are you aware that we have people who have applied for asylum, have immigrated out of Nigeria, have gotten visas, that the government of Cross River State is persecuting them because they are championing a cause against the superhighway to protect the environment? As a result, they have been marked for political persecution, for arrest, for torture, and use it to seek political asylum. Are you aware that people are being paid by international agencies that they are fighting a noble cause in Nigeria on the issue of the superhighway? Are you aware that families, people now live on the politics of the superhighway? Jesus Christ, this is not a country. How on earth will you play the politics of the survivability and the life of a people, reduce it to the politics? Let me not list countries, but I can give you an example of two, where even the EIA study itself tends to suggest that this project is not healthy, you can't do this. And government by policy, because the focus is on the people, the welfare, the employment of the people, government says, enough of that nonsense. Get that job done. Terminal 5 in the UK. The community protested, insisted that they cannot build, that the noise level, which is noise spec at 85 dBA will be too, the planes will exceed 85 dBA, and so they cannot allow an airport to be built there. The British government went ahead, they built Terminal 5. Today it's a world-class facility. Kruger National Park in South Africa. The superhighway crosses the heart of Kruger National Park. And today it is that road that I have used from Pretoria, or you're coming from Johannesburg, you're going to Kruger National Park. You go through the superhighway, I think an N4 or something from Pretoria. You go through the superhighway, and as you go to Kruger National Park, you see tourists. I've been there severally, and you meet Australians, most of my friends from New Zealand. I met in South Africa, in a national park. Every action of man has a potential impact. And the EIA is to develop the remedial strategy to mitigate that impact. That's the philosophy. And it comes under the section called EMP, Environmental Management Plan. So, okay, you want to build this road. So there are going to be some wildlife that will be affected. So during construction phase, you start by clicking noise. Give them small sound of your machine. Let them feel the sound and know that there is somebody coming. They will move to safer place. They go a little further off your road. If there are some crossings that they are naturally supposed to go, your superhighway must create some underground connection so that the animals can go through under, if you are going to cut the forest into two. So that they have the option, those who cannot stand the sound, to go under. There is nowhere in the world they say, you cannot do this. An engineering challenge cannot constitute a moral barrier. It is failure of the intellect again, that you run into such escapist explanation. There is nothing on earth that does not migrate.
So what is the linkage between the Bakassi Deep Seaport and the superhighway?
The superhighway is the evacuation corridor for the Bakassi Deep Seaport. The easiest way to courier goods into the deep seaport. I give you a good example. Any port that must be commercially viable must have not just inbound cargo, must also have outbound cargo. So what is the outbound cargo in Nigeria? None. Perhaps only crude oil. So a vessel comes in with dry bulk, sugar, and is going back. It goes back empty. Why? Because the solid mineral we have in Kogi, Nasarawa, Taraba, Benue, you cannot exploit. They have metallurgical bauxite. They have magnetic iron ore. But you can't carry that, how many thousands of kilometers to get to Lagos to export? So you have rich assets like that, just flying west. Look at in Benue. They have a whole coal basin. The coal deposit is lying waste. No infrastructure to move it. So the superhighway is an evacuation corridor. Look, Germany is asking for sesame seed, ordinarily Bene seed. But the best Bene seed in the world is in northern Nigeria. In terms of quality, in terms of medicinal, nutritive value. But all my friends in Germany who have tried to export Bene seed out of Nigeria, if they move 10 trailer loads from Maiduguri, those 10 trailer loads, they will be lucky if 7 arrived. 3 would have had accident and somersaulted on the road. The others will get to, like my friend told me, as he got to Ojota, to move from Ojota to get to the port, was 7 days. And you're paying for the trailer that you hire to carry your container. You pay. And so the Benesi farmer is farming in vain. So the young people can't get jobs. But this superhighway is evacuating to northern Nigeria. So you can carry your goods on a smooth superhighway and fly in straight to the deep sea port. As you're approaching the deep sea port, it widens from 6 lanes to 10 lanes. Remember, it's a toll road. It's a private road. It's a state project with private investors. When I gave a budget this year for 1.3, for 2018, for 1.3 trillion, and the world was like, Cross River State, breaking history, 1.3 trillion budget for a state. And people were saying, oh, it's big news, just like when Jakande, a state government, to give a budget of 1 billion. It was big news. I mean, 1 billion. The first time a state will give a budget in billion was Jakande era. And so in Ayade era, the first time a state will give a budget in trillion. And when people talk, I just wonder, if I commoditize the value of the superhighway being a toll road, listen to me. Picture a toll road, which by international standard, you have toll at every 50 kilometers, as it were, on 275 kilometers. Let me be very nice. We have 6 toll points. I will raise that money from the capital market. My shares will be oversubscribed. And that's what we're doing in Q1 of this year, to be able to raise that fund for that budget. No cross-riverian will say, I will not buy shares of the deep sea port and the superhighway. Everyone knows that that is the dream of this state. I would buy my shares. He will buy. Ultimately, the shares will be subscribed. So the investors who are coming with me, they know that we know what we're doing. But you can't go to capital market unless your viability study is good.
Let's talk about the diversification of the Nigerian economy, which is one of the things you are pursuing in Cross River State. Here we're talking about the agri sector. You are talking of manufacturing, and you've set up a garment factory here, a rice mill, and other agricultural processing outfits in Cross River State. Take us through that.
First, let me be very practical. I set up the garment factory with a philosophy of backward integration. So I partnered with Ariwa Textiles and set up a very large cotton farm with an experimental farm of 10,000 hectares in northern Nigeria, northern Cross River, which has the right climate for the cultivation of cotton. Naturally, the patronage which was envisaged from federal government in terms of purchase of army uniform, customs, immigration, police, civil defense, NYC, the list is endless. That kind of patronage will encourage the garment factory to do so well that they can have funding, they can have a transaction history that can allow them to go to Bank of Industry to get funding, to be able to go and set up the ginneries and the yarneries in the locations where the farms are. Of course, that's the original intent. That is diversification that the President Buhari seeks. We took cocoa, and decided to put a cocoa processing plant to produce chocolate bars and chocolate powder for export. Because cocoa is the largest earner of direct foreign inflow in terms of agri business as it is today in Nigeria. Today we're working with Nexim Bank. But how that turns to reality, how does government fund, how does government keep commitment to support us for that to work? But for the rice, I give it to Mr. President, President Buhari, with CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele, gave Cross River State 3 billion naira under the Commercial Agri Program, tax, Commercial Agri Credit Scheme. From where, of course, which will go nowhere in terms of the value, we're building a rice mill, which is the first vitaminized rice plant in Nigeria. And not only that, we're building a big, in fact, that one is finished, it's ready for commissioning, and President Buhari will come and commission it, because it's the first and the only rice seed and seedling factory in Africa. It's ready. The installation team, the equipment arrived 27th of December in the Lagos port. We're clearing them. 15th commenced installation, operation, and it takes them just 12 days. It's practical fact. What we have spent is nothing compared to the 3 billion we got from commercial agriculture credit, because we realize that the seed inputs are defective. The yield, the reproducibility, very low. Normally in botanical science, you say you need to use cytokinins and gibberellins, which are growth factors, which are growth hormones, to be able to get the seeds to do well and germinate. In science, we call it seed dormancy. So either you give it shock treatment or use this method to be able to increase germination. The seeds we get are very, the level at which they germinate so low. So I knew that for the rice value chain to work, it's easy to run to the open market and start showing the rice you are producing. But for us as scientists, we go to the basis, we take our time. Our young men will not return to agriculture because we're not a country that regulates anything. See, society must grow. We cannot take world-class, first world attitude into a third world. Look at countries that have done well. Those countries that fell in the same category with Nigeria. What has made them grow is attitude, is discipline, is punishment, is penalty for default, penalty auditing. What we have lacked in this country is that we have focused so much on the ideals that Europe and America have preached, to the point that we don't realize that we're not at the same level of horizon. If China can regulate the use of electronic media, if they can make laws, because today the young generation of Nigerians don't even have the sanity that we have. So what ultimately you are going to get is to ask yourself, which is that generation coming behind us?
In addition to the cocoa, the rice mill, and other products that you are following up very closely, is the banana and sugarcane plantation. How much of that have you done so far?
In Germany, the daily consumption of banana from statistics, 80 million bananas. In the entire Europe, all their bananas, let me know, recently Cameroon is now one of the exporters of banana, but all of that comes from Southern America. It's a shame. The soil, banana is a very selfish, it only grows on black, humid, subtropical soil, and so it is host specific, it is very selective in the kind of place it grows. That's why in the entire Nigeria, you can only find banana do well only in some parts of Enugu State, some few states in the Niger Delta, except Cross River, where the entire state is suitable for the cultivation of banana. And it's one of the biggest foreign exchange earner. The species of banana in particular we have in Cross River is the sweet type. There are some religious sects that love it sweet, break their fast with something sweet. The demand for banana in the world, natural organic banana in the world, can never be met. And it's a monopoly because I don't have China competing with me for export of banana like they will compete with rice. I don't have any other country apart from Bolivia, Puerto Rico, Mexico, which is South America. So they need 27 days, 21 to 27 days for their product to get to Europe. And I'm 7 days away from Europe in terms of maritime travel. And Cross River has got a land. What size? 23,000 square kilometers of land. That's Cross River. To show you how big that is, relative to Lagos, which is about 3,000 square kilometers. So Cross River is like 7 times that. One of our local governments, Akampa, is bigger than a country. Some countries. So what am I expecting? We have set up this banana plantation in Odupani local government. Studies show that it is viable in all the local governments, but we wanted a location where it's very close to the deep sea port. So it's sited in partnership with San Carlos of Mexico, using drip irrigation technique and using fertigation as opposed to fertilization. All being done. I'm not telling you what I'm planning to do. I'm telling you what is done, that you can go there and film and you see the farm. We started with 100 hectares and we're expanding to an infinite number. And what's the main reason? We have to find outbound cargo for our deep sea port. And the president has given a roadmap. Agro is the way forward. And I agree with Mr. President. But you see, it's not enough to agree with him and do nothing. So you see, we've taken cocoa, we've taken rice, we've taken cotton, we've taken banana as frontline projects. We're building one of the biggest poultry farms in Obubra local government area. So we need yellow maize. So that's why a team is coming from South Africa. We're growing yellow maize in Obubra to support the poultry farm. The protein deficiency here, as was reported by Cavenco of Spain, shows that Nigeria will have poultry farms in every local government. Will still not be able to feed West Africa with their protein need. Great opportunity in the agro, and that's what the president says every day. And we're focused on oil. Even the oil, we're not opening the ground and packing it out fast before it becomes old-fashioned. We're still having the same cruel and difficult process of getting approvals, as if the world is waiting for us.
You have very big projects, great ideas, but a lot of this will also depend on the energy mix that you require to drive these processes. What are you doing in this regard in terms of generating power?
Those 4 Germans, they are a company called DNS. They work with a company called FEE. Both are from Bavaria and Germany. They are here to put the solar power plant for the Ayade Industrial Park. The new technology, the lithium technology for power storage is the most reliable technology, and that's the future. Before now, you need a lead cadmium battery, you need a liquid acid battery. They have very poor storage capacity. And all solar lights and solar dependent energy sources have failed in Africa, have failed here in particular, because all their design criteria are based on temperature sensitivity. So they have never worked well in efficiency. So seeking energy mix, you cannot complete that without solar energy, which is principally number 1 and almost near free, but storage is a problem. And so with the new technology, with a partnership with these Germans, we're building the first power plant, 2 megawatts, to support the industrial park with its own accompanying storage system. And in the event that this power from solar is weak consistently for 7 days, you only need a 500 kVA generator for 1 hour to charge back to 2 megawatts. I am not telling you about what I'm planning to do. Again, I'm telling you about a company has arrived, they are doing the installation. You see the street lights, 100% solar going on. So it's not a plan. That's one option, solar as one of the energy mixes. 2, the wind turbine. You have wind turbine, which we're working with Goldwind of China. Goldwind is the biggest wind company, wind energy company in the world. We are not telling you about a project we plan to do. We've already paid them. They are building the first smart grid wind functional energy turbine in Obudu Cattle Ranch, taking advantage of the altitude and the wind. That the amount of wind in the Obudu Ranch is so huge that I don't need to go through the agony of trying to find how we can get our gas-fired turbines to send energy to Obudu. And so taking advantage of wind alone, we are going to generate enough energy from Obudu Cattle Ranch to feed the entire northern Cross River State. It's been paid for as mobilization. You will see them come here and you see them bring helicopters to be able to take these things and stand them, and Nigeria will see it happen real. It's not a plan, it's not an ambition, it's an ongoing project.
Let's talk a little bit about politics. A lot of people seem to think you have a very choppy relationship with Mr. President, even though you are in an opposition political party.
He gave me the honor of being his first host governor to receive the president on a working visit. That tells you his depth. And I think that people must come to realize the difference between parties and relationship and persons. If truly my intention is to serve my people and to bring value, reduce poverty, increase prosperity, and ultimately guarantee them happiness, the day my election was won was the day politics stopped and governance started. I can't take party above my people. I've gone to Mr. President. I need this for my people. He steps in and says, done. I go to Mr. President. I have challenge with approvals. I mean, I'm not supposed to say, literally chief of staff of the president literally had to sit on his customer approval. Took it very personal. Chief of staff to the president, of course, is APC. But he did that for the sake of Cross River State, a PDP state. We must separate politics from governance. And we must put an end to this politics. Nigeria has become too politicized. I can show you in my first year how many projects I've finished, how many jobs I've created. In my second year, how many factories I've finished, how many factories I've commissioned, how many people I have given job. As 29th of May is coming, I will know no sleep because I want to remain that best governor that different newspapers keeps giving me award as best governor. Politics with ethics. That is my political slogan. Anything you know it's not good to your conscience, is repugnant to natural justice, please don't do it. We look down, put down ourselves, put down our governors, put down our president, put down all the political class, destroy everything. Very, very, very cannibalistic. That is attitude. Comes back to the same subject ultimately. So my attitude is a complete aberration, a classical deviation from norm.